It's January, and lots of people around the world are using this month to reset and try and adopt healthier habits. And one of the most popular this month is Dry January, where people try to reduce or indeed cut out their intake of alcohol. Now, for us at the Mental Space, this is a very personal issue for us, as one of the inspirations for our mission was the death of my father from alcoholism. He suffered from depression and drank himself to death in 3 months. So today we're going to be looking at how can we phase alcohol out, what are the benefits to our mental health and our physical health, and maybe give you a few tips and tricks on how to embrace those healthier lifestyles. So I am delighted today to be joined on the Mental Space podcast by Erika Blazeviciute Doyle.
Close.
Go for it.
Erika.
Blazeviciute.
Yes, you got it.
Erika Blazeviciute Doyle, the founder of Drink Dry, which aims to give consumers in the UAE more choice, I would say, when it comes to alcohol-free beverages.
Correct.
Excellent.
Correct.
So give us your origin story, where you're at right now. So tell us about Drink Dry and tell us what inspired you to create this business in the first place.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for sharing your little personal insight into that. I got sort of goosebumps when you were talking about your father, and I think a lot of these big lifestyle changes that we go through is often inspired by our own personal journeys, choices, experiences that we have.
Yeah.
Mine was my inspiration for giving up alcohol almost 9 years ago was personal. My husband and I, we got married, and for probably a period of 4 years, we were trying to start a family. And it was really incredibly infuriating because on one side, we were going to all the specialist doctors and everybody was telling us we're in good place, we're healthy, there's no medical reasons. Yeah. But on the other hand, it wasn't happening. Yeah. And I remember going to see my very elderly GP in the UK, and, we kind of sat there and he said, "Oh, hello, dear," And we were chatting, and he said, I want to ask you a question. He said, "How much do you drink?" And my husband and I looked at each other, and I think we said to him at that moment in time, we said, maybe 4 to 5 bottles of wine a week that we share. So on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, we open a bottle of wine and we drink it. On Friday and Saturday, it might be 2 bottles of wine. Yeah. And what we didn't say to him, it's those binge drinking moments when we'll go out with friends or we have a big party. Yeah. And his eyes lit up and he said, "I should be talking to you about your drinking problem, not your infertility." And it really, I still to this day, I don't think sharing a bottle of wine with another person borders alcoholism. Yeah. But I do believe doing it days in a row is not healthy for you. Yeah. And I think that was for us was kind of alarm bells ringing. And he just said, I really strongly recommend you just look at your general lifestyle choices. Yeah. Cut out alcohol, cut out the Friday, Saturday night smoking, sleep more, eat better, take care of yourself better. And I had this bigger goal. I wanted this baby. So anybody, they could say anything to me. I was going to do it, So it was a really easy, simple choice. I wasn't going teetotal forever. I was just giving up alcohol for some time to see maybe that will be the trick, right? Yeah. And I think this was back in 2015. And at that exact moment, there was a shift. There was the growth of the non-alcoholic drinks category started to come up to the surface. That's when Ben Branson first came out with Seedlip and Diageo showed interest. So everybody was looking, what is going on here? So I would say my husband and I were the original guinea pigs of these brands. Some were awful, undrinkable. Some were fantastic. Some had some getting used to, So we had this personal bigger goal, why I wanted to give up alcohol or moderate it or along those lines. It wasn't permanent and forever. And also, it was a really good timing that other options started to come into the market. So if we were entertaining or if we were going out to a local pub, we could have a non-alcoholic gin and tonic, and my husband could have a non-alcoholic beer that wasn't undrinkable, And then fast forward 4 or 5 years, by the time we moved to the UK, moved to Dubai, I had 2 kids by that point, so it clearly worked.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed when I moved here to find such a lack of options. It was as if the Middle East hasn't heard of what has happened in the drinks industry in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
It felt really difficult to believe that. And I remember going to really nice restaurants, not finding anything to enjoy, going to supermarkets, not finding anything to enjoy. So that was kind of leading from a personal story, why I gave up alcohol, to feeling frustrated as a consumer when I moved to the UAE. I didn't feel frustrated when I lived in the UK because the choice was there.
Yeah.
You had to look for it and you had to search and, you had to order things and wait for it. It wasn't as simple as it is now because it was the beginning of the category growing, but it was there. I felt I could find it as a consumer. Here, it was a complete lack of it when I moved here. And I moaned and I whinged for a good 6 to 9 months. And I think my husband got so fed up of me constantly, we would plan to go somewhere. Yeah. And before we'd enter the restaurant, he'd say to me, please don't whinge as soon as we sit down that there's nothing for us to drink. And I did every time. I just felt genuinely really frustrated because I'm a grown adult that has worked all my life. I have good spending power. I've worked hard to earn my money and I want to spend it. Like I want to go out and I want to have a really nice meal and I want to spend money on drinks as well, but I cannot. I'm drinking water and that's the only thing I'm enjoying. Yeah. So that was the initial kind of inspiration where I thought, surely there has got to be a crowd of people who feel the same as I do for different reasons. You shared your father died from alcoholism. Somebody might be going through a fitness journey where they're just cutting back on calories. Somebody else might be going through fertility. Somebody else is pregnant. So the reasons are so wide and vast. But I felt so strongly about the fact that there must be a demand out there. And because nobody was offering a solution, nobody could understand the size of the demand. So when you were speaking to beverage players in the market, it was dismissed. It was completely dismissed because they did not believe there was a market for it here.
I'm going to take you back to that doctor's office, if I can. When he turned around and, I don't know if he specifically used the word alcoholism, but when he talked to you and talked about your drinking and said, whoa, hang on, we need to talk about that. How did that feel? Because, had you been in, I don't know, not denial, but did you not think you had a problem?
No, and I still don't think we had a problem. I think he said it very much tongue in cheek. I think I should be speaking to you about your drinking problem. Yeah. And I have family members who have battled alcoholism. So I'm very well aware what that looks like, what that feels like. I was never a huge drinker, but I enjoyed a good bottle of wine. And particularly, I think once you get into a relationship and you are spending more time, your drinking habits change as you go through different parts of your life. So when you are at university, you're drinking super cheap booze, whatever you can get your hands on, for the buzz, for going out, because you want to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning. As you start working and you're going out with your colleagues, it's a couple of drinks in the pub and that's it. You don't, I didn't drink at home. Yeah. I would go out with my colleagues and have a bottle of wine or a couple of drinks and I'd go home. Then you get into a relationship and that changes. So you then are at home and having dinners at home with your partner and opening a nice bottle of wine that you can now afford to spend money on. Feels like you're really grown up. You feel like an adult. You feel sophisticated. So I still don't believe we had a drinking problem, but I do think we were drinking too much. Yeah. And it definitely had effects on my general well-being and my performance mentally, emotionally, physically. It definitely had an impact. I just didn't know that it did at that moment in time.
So kind of quantify that for me. Obviously you can show us the evidence because you've got 2 children. But
3 now.
3. Congratulations. But when we talked about, we talk about mental health, the benefits for you personally, what did you notice? Other than, your children came along, what did you notice? What was the difference for you? We often talk about anxiety and we often talk about, the mental stresses that are caused by drinking and the hangover the next day and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was incredible. I think the first, I would say, 6 months for me after I completely cut out alcohol was transformational. And I didn't do it because I thought I needed to transform my lifestyle. I had a different reason why. And everything that was happening was a bonus for me that just came as a great added on, So the first thing I noticed was my energy levels went through the roof, probably within the first month. So you're cutting out alcohol, your sleep becomes really restful. That was the first thing I noticed, that from alcohol is a depressant, right? So it helps you go to sleep. It physically, if you drink a bottle of wine, it will help you fall asleep. But it really affects in a negative way the quality of sleep that you have and how long you sleep and how you feel when you wake up.
Yeah.
When you cut that out, the quality of your sleep becomes really noticeably better. That then leads on to you having more energy. That then leads on to you making better eating habits because you don't feel sluggish, you don't feel hungover, you don't want to have a grubby bacon sandwich after a night out. You genuinely start making better choices for yourself. So for me it was, and my skin, I think as a woman, I want to, that's something I remember really, really vividly, that my skin, within the first 30 days, my skin was glowing, genuinely glowing. And I didn't change my skincare routine. I didn't do anything. It's just my skin and my face looked so much better. And people were commenting on that as well. So my sleep got better. My energy went genuinely through the roof to the point where I would go out for 2-hour-long walks because I didn't know what to do with myself if I didn't otherwise, I started making better choices. Within probably another couple of months, I joined a fitness group with another bunch of ladies. Mental clarity came sort of a little bit like a few months into that, where I just realized I'm so much sharper. My memory was so much better. I didn't have that brain fog because you wake up fully ready for the day. I lost weight. I think in the first... And I wasn't significantly overweight. In the first probably 6 to 9 months, I lost about 10 kg, which is a good amount without doing anything else but cutting back on alcohol. Because the number of calories in a glass of wine, it's the same as a burger. A big glass of wine, it's the same. It's 250 calories. That's the same as a relatively healthy burger.
Trying to do the maths. No, I don't know. It's a bit scary maths, that.
Can you imagine that? Yeah. So you are having a meal, and then I had pictured this when I realized. I pictured myself eating a spaghetti bolognese for dinner and eating a burger on the side. This is what I pictured when I realized these scary calories and, that we just don't need. They are empty calories. Mental for me came later on, and I think it came in the sense of I felt, because I had this bigger goal, I wanted a family, I started feeling in control of something because I was doing something. I felt physically better. I felt like I had more time. And I know it's a weird thing to say because we only have 24 hours a day. We all wish we had more. But I felt like I had gained time.
Wow.
And that was a really significant aspect, And I think having gained time, feeling physically better, meditating, going to yoga, I didn't stick to them. They weren't my forms of exercises. But it helped me relax and get into a place where I did get pregnant. And when I did, you then not drinking because you are expecting the baby. And then you give birth to a baby and you are breastfeeding, so you're not drinking again. Then I got pregnant the second time. The same story happened. And by the time where I could drink again, I had zero desire to.
Did you ever try?
No. No. There's one funny story where my husband and I always said, because he in the first 6 months, I think, after that doctor's appointment, he would probably have a drink or two if he was going out to football or somewhere. I went the full not doing it.
Yeah.
But then after a couple of months, he kind of joined me on this journey. So we've both been non-drinkers for the last 8 to 9 years. And we always said that if we go somewhere and somebody opens a really exquisite bottle of wine, we would have a glass because why wouldn't you? And I was faced with a situation last year where we got invited to a dinner party and a host opened most amazing bottle of wine that my husband is in wine industry, so he was really impressed. But by this point, it was 10 o'clock in the evening on a Thursday night, and I had a really big meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning the next day. And I just thought to myself, I really genuinely don't want to. I just had an amazing dinner. I've enjoyed a bottle of non-alcoholic wine with my husband because the hosts made me feel great and they had it ready for me.
Yeah.
Why would I have something that I know my body is going to genuinely reject and I'm going to feel awful the next day? And then I just thought, you know what? That whole saying that if somebody opened an exquisite bottle of wine, I would have a glass, it actually isn't true. So and I always stress this, that with Drink Dry, we do things tongue-in-cheek. The message is light. It's all about try. It's all about try. It's all about moderation. It's all about, there's a choice out there. Yeah. We are not Alcohol Change UK. We don't come in hard. We don't go in.
Not lecturing.
We're not at all, because I know that from my personal story, you have to be blind not to see the benefits once you start cutting out. And then it comes naturally. Every single person that has tried Drink Dry products or reached out to us, we know, and they speak to us and we communicate and we host events, they might start off with maybe cutting back 2 days a week. Then within the first year, they find themselves cutting back 3 days a week. And within another 2 years, they're only now drinking on Friday and Saturday. And then sometimes they're not even drinking for a month or two. So everybody takes their own journey, and we're there for it. We're there for it. And we are your bestie to kind of keep you going and bring you the message in a really light way. And I think that's always been really important to me, because everybody moves at their own pace. Look at me and my husband. I went full speed I'm cutting out, I'm going to do this whole thing. And within within 2 months, I was exercising, cooking. I really embraced the whole change. My husband took a bit more time with it, and he I'm still the lead to our healthy lifestyle. I sign him up for gyms, I sign him up for different things, but he's still conscious about his drinking.
How's that changed your relationship, if you don't mind me asking? Because, for many expat couples, that glass of wine in the garden, particularly at this time of year when the weather is so beautiful here, where you feel like you're almost on holiday every single day, it is kind of woven into the language, particularly on an evening or a weekend, and we have so many expats come here, and we've got the brunch culture, and it's almost, sometimes it's a way of coping with the loneliness of moving to a new place. So how's that changed your relationship, if you don't mind me asking?
We still do exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
We use the garden every single evening to sit down with a bottle of beer, a glass of wine, a non-alcoholic margarita, a non-alcoholic virgin, whatever. We still do exactly that.
So you haven't removed that kind of social engagement.
Because for me, the social element of it is beautiful. The sitting down with people, cheersing, nursing a drink, it relaxes us. It's part of our DNA, the whole food and beverage. And look at the weddings. Look at any bill of any wedding. The food and beverage is the biggest part of it that they spend on. It's part of our culture. It's how we show love. If somebody comes to my house, I want to give them food. I want to give them a drink, because that's how we show love.
That's very Lithuanian.
But it's how we show love and how we've been brought up. It's very Arabic as well in this part of the world.
Very true.
It's very cultural, and I still love that. I still love hosting. I love entertaining, but I want to have a choice. I really want to have
you're coming in as well, because, often it feels like it's a choice between having fun and not having fun.
Yeah, and look, there's no two ways about it. It takes a little while getting used to the fun while you're not drinking.
Yeah.
There's no, the fun is different, I went to Buddha Bar last weekend for my sister's 40th, and I think out of 11 people that we were there, one was drinking. Only one.
Interesting.
Only one person was drinking, and somebody was pregnant. Somebody was a spouse of a pregnant lady, so they were supporting them. my stepson who's 22, he's preparing for a boxing match. So he's completely like physical reasons. My parents don't drink. So everybody had their own different reasons why they weren't drinking. But we drank probably 8 or 9 bottles of non-alcoholic sparkling wine. Mm-hmm. We felt that we were celebrating. We cheersed a load. We danced. We had a really great time. But when the rest of the crowd started getting on stage and like the shirts were coming off, we left, which was perfectly acceptable. It was nearly 1 o'clock. We got there at 9. We left. And we all went home and we left. So the fun is a little bit different and it takes a little while getting used to it. But I think it's because we have been conditioned, we have learned, we've been taught, we've experienced like in our early drinking careers, what fun looks like. That's why it's different for us, But when I look at my stepson is an amazing example of that. He's 22 years old. He was 10 when I first met him. So in his kind of teenage years, we both given up alcohol, my husband and I. Yeah. Yet we had the most incredible parties in our house. Really, really, really incredible parties. Some people drank, some people didn't drink. But he has experience of seeing a load of people go out and have a really great time not drinking. And I could literally count on one hand the number of times I've seen a 22-year-old have a drink or known him have a drink. Yeah. Because he for him, having fun doesn't go hand in hand with being drunk. It's about spending time with family and enjoying yourself in a different way.
So you launched Drink Dry when?
So I established the company February 2020.
Okay, great timing.
Fantastic timing. I think we kind of were already hearing COVID in the background, but it wasn't, we didn't know what's to come. So, and I remember it was a big decision because, you're spending money on trade license, I didn't have a business plan. I haven't done market research to understand the size of the opportunity. There's no Nielsen data. There's no data here in this part of the world for me to gauge anything. If I was launching a ketchup brand, I could say, okay, what are the Heinz sales in the market? Okay, if I take 2% of that market share, this would be my business plan. There was nothing for me to so it was purely based on the gut instinct and the desire to do it. It was really scary because I started the company, paid the money for the trade license and everything else, and then COVID happened. However, it was a blessing in disguise in a way because I had time to understand the products more. I had a great wealth of knowledge from being a consumer in the UK for a long time, but to understand the compliance for the products, to understand the products that I can bring in here, how will the authorities accept the product? Because technically I'm bringing in something that looks and tastes and feels like alcohol, and I want to put it on the supermarket shelf and I want to openly sell it, yet it is not alcohol. So it took a little time, and I feel the authorities here have been incredible, and I genuinely say that they were absolutely incredible. If they didn't know something, we found it out together. I felt I had a lot of support from any official office I went and knocked on their door. Yeah. So 2020 was just me doing my homework and getting ready, getting the website ready, trying to get the products in. And I think the first container that I shipped in landed in October 2020. I had 9 pallets in that container, and I was 6 or 5 months pregnant. And I thought to myself, and I made this joke to me and my husband, said, worst comes to worst, we'll drink it. Like, what's the worst that will happen? The products have 3-year shelf life. We will just drink it ourselves and we'll gift it to friends, and what's the worst that can happen? So then it took us a few more months to finalize the website, and we did a soft launch on the 14th of December 2020. Zero marketing, zero advertising, just sending links to all the contacts on Instagram we had, and WhatsApp groups for mums at school and community groups. Like any group that I was in WhatsApp, I sent it there. Yeah. And in my head, I probably thought I had maybe 6 months worth of stock. So I don't have to worry about it. See how the first few months go, and I can always bring it in. By the 9th of January, so 3 weeks in, I was flying in the stock, selling it then at a loss because the air freight was so expensive because we sold out. So if I needed any proof in that moment in time that I'm onto something, that was it. That was it. And then 2021 was kind of the first year where the e-commerce it was our bread and butter. That's where we started. The brand of Drink Dry started. The consumer education, the community building started. Couple of retailers came on board. We started dipping our toes into bars and restaurants, and selfishly, it was my local restaurants that I first went and knocked on the doors. Like, I come here every Friday. Like, can you just list these 2 products? And I promise I'll buy it. And then it kind of like started from there.
And what's the response been?
Incredible. Once we look, I think the category still needs a lot of education. And I am so pleased to see other players. I'm so pleased to see other distributors come on board, because we are simply not able to do it on our own. We are still a small company. We're 15 people. We're only 3 years old. We can't do it on our own. So it takes a long time for me to get the consumer to convert and to get them to understand what this product is. But once they try it, the product does the job. I always say that my job as Drink Dry is to get the consumer to buy the product, to convince them to buy it. But then I have to make sure that the product does what it's meant to do. Then if the consumer doesn't buy the second time, that's not up to me. It's up to the product. It means the product didn't deliver. Something was not right with the product, and we try to fix it. But 9 out of 10 times our consumers come back to us, and if they had a great experience with one product, whether it's a sparkling wine, they will try the beer. If they had a great experience with a beer, they will try cross-category products, and their journey into the non-al kind of begins, and they become more intrigued and more open. And as we grow as a business and we bring in more products, and as the category evolves globally, and there are different products coming out. I mean, there's a protein non-alcoholic beer in Germany, like protein non-alcoholic beer. So this is the perfect product for my fitness consumers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't a thing a year ago. So people are on this journey with us, and the response is incredible.
What are the pillars of that education then? Like, what do you actually say to consumers?
Good question. I think so what we do, we segment our consumers in, you're going to test me down my marketing strategy here, into 5 different consumer base as a whole, right? Yeah. We made a mistake initially when we were looking at our marketing and how to target consumer. We went the really lazy route of like age, ethnicity, like gender, and it didn't give us anything. Like, how do I market my product differently to you than to myself, right? It didn't give us anything. And then we did this big exercise where we segmented our consumers into 5 different pillars, answering people's why. Why are they interested in non-alc? Why would they be drinking non-alc? So we segmented them into business crowd. So think your young entrepreneurs, DIFC crowd, people who want more time, people who want the mental clarity.
Okay.
It's all about like, right? I need this to be as sharp as I possibly can because I'm on this life mission to build the next unicorn. Yeah. So the way we educate that consumer is very different to the way we would educate the fitness fanatics who cycle in Al Qudra 7 days a week, and their whole existence exists around the fitness and their fitness goals and what they eat, what they drink. Yeah. Then you have your parents. So we segment parenting and parents as a completely different group, because I do believe that transitioning from a single free lifestyle to having children does have an impact. You cannot have hangover on a Saturday. You cannot be in a bad mood. You have to be on your top game the whole time.
And yet so many of us are.
And it's so hard, So the way we would educate the parents and their reason why they would be looking into this is very different, because their reason is why. It's around, in a really simplistic way, looking to be a better parent. Like, are you looking to...
Which is an increasing growing conversation and an increasing
Correct.
awareness for all of us, isn't it?
Correct.
Our parents' generation probably didn't think about it as much as we...
No, but do you know what I also think? I think there is my parents didn't work as much as I do.
Yeah.
My parents didn't stay at work such long hours. My parents didn't have side hustles to this extent. My parents had, I felt, or I feel, or maybe that's distorted in my head, but I feel that life was a bit more simplistic and they spent more time at home. And I feel that with myself...
Well, 9 to 5 was 9 to 5 and weekends were weekends.
Absolutely.
There wasn't the blended lifestyle that we have these days.
You didn't have emails on the go. Like, you didn't have that connected to your work 24/7. So your parents were physically more present, I feel.
Yeah.
And we're not. So the guilt creeps in.
Yeah.
For me, the guilt is a huge part of why I want to be a better parent. I already fail my kids, often during the week because I miss bedtime, or I come in and I'm still in the work mode and I'm still answering emails. I know I shouldn't, but I sometimes do under the duvet in bed when I'm putting them to bed. So when comes the weekend, I really want to be able to get up at 6 o'clock with them, because that's the time they get up. And I want to be a great parent. I want to have the energy to play with them. I want to be there for them and show up as the best version of myself. And, our consumers, they don't necessarily sit in one bracket. You could be an entrepreneur and a parent and into fitness. I mean, that
All
would be
three, yeah.
all three.
Yeah.
And whatever are the two other segment groups, but you could be across the board, right? And the way we would educate you, it's kind of different, and the events we would host for you is different. The brands we would collaborate with is different. The products we would get you to try, your first, like, you're dipping your toe into non-alc, like, we would check, like, okay, so what would be the perfect product for you to have that first experience, to make sure we hook you and we've got you, that you're coming back.
What are the other two? I'm really putting you to the test, but I am interested on,
Okay, so
we've got fitness, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got parents.
We've got wellness and well-being. So people who are, the difference between our fitness,
Physical health.
it's physical. I'm looking at the back of the packet to see how many calories. Yeah, exactly. So it's all about how I look. Yeah. The wellness and well-being, it's one of those, think globally, act locally. That's their kind of motto. What is good for me? Like, these consumers would want to know that they're not replacing something that is toxic for them with equally bad toxins in it, that's got a lot of preservatives, got other bad stuff. Yes, it's low in calorie. A glass of non-alcoholic wine is 14 calories compared to 98 or above that in alcohol. Okay. So there's a no-brainer conversation in terms of, like,
I was going to ask about
physical.
Dive into that. Yeah.
I mean, it's from the physical perspective in terms of calories and the
sometimes
physical.
we see products out there, we're trying to replace alcohol with juices and stuff, and yet the sugar in it is still super high. So
I would probably say I could count on one hand the number of products we have on our e-commerce that has added sugar, or the things that I would say, yeah, this one has sugar added. Because we also have consumers with a sweet palate, so we have to cater for them.
Yeah.
But if you look at the product description, the first sentence will be sweet, added sugar. So we let you know that if that is your why, don't go for this. Absolutely, it's a choice, right? But on the whole, 99% of the products that are coming out from non-alc, or at least the products that we bring in as Drink Dry, are the things that are genuinely good for you. They don't have any nasty preservatives added. They don't have obscene levels of sulfites in it. They don't have added sugar. The wines that we have mostly natural sugar that comes from the grapes, which is a completely different ballgame than having just plowing sugar in it to make it taste better. So from the calorie perspective, it's completely aligned with the goals. From the wellness perspective, people look at that and think, yeah, this is actually good for me. It has lapsang, it has ginger, it has other things that it's good for me. They're almost that crowd, and I think they will see the most excitement coming in the category the next 2 years, because I always look at them as a consumer. They don't want anything that is without. They want something that not only doesn't have alcohol in it, but what good does it have in it? Does it have GABA in it? Does it have CBD in it? Why can't I have a drink with some other good herbal remedies for me? So that's the other consumer part. And then the fifth one is pregnancy. So pregnant ladies, yeah. And we purposely separated pregnancy and parenthood because the challenges are very different. Pregnancy is like, you cannot, right? So they are almost like our easiest one to go, well, there you go. Like this you can. Yeah. And the parents, it's different.
I can. Yes, in the expat community, there are plenty that get to bedtime and then.
Yeah.
From your consumers, then, from your customers, I mean, do you have any anecdotes of how this has helped their lives? You know, do you get feedback from them going, Erika, you know, we're pregnant, or Erika, I'm climbing Everest, or?
Yeah, I think the pregnancy one is that's the most common one, and I think it's how people find us the most, right? They're in that part of their life where we are the answer to their obvious question. The biggest thing that the running theme from our customers is that they're not being left out, that there's no FOMO when they're going out. There's no explanations needing to do, that they feel part of something, which is very different to being excluded or being the one with the orange juice or the one with a glass of water. So if you're pregnant, you're going out with your girlfriends and you bring a bottle of non-alcoholic wine to somewhere and they pour it in a glass. You are part of the girlfriend chat. Yes, you're pregnant and everybody knows you're not drinking, but you're part of the fun. You're part of the excitement. If you're watching football with a bunch of guys at somebody's house and everybody's like drinking beer and being all macho and laddish and whatever they're doing, and if that's your thing and you want to be part of that, you can be part of that. You're not,
You've still got a bottle of beer in your hand.
You've got a bottle of beer in your hand, exactly. And you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. So the anecdotes come more from the part that they're filling the gap, kind of somewhere. Things like somebody say to us, my husband and I went to the beach and I pulled out a bottle of sparkling wine and I poured him and myself, and he's like, oh, you're so clever, you're so smart, you brought a bottle of sparkling wine to the beach, and then after a couple of glasses, he genuinely thought he's drinking alcoholic sparkling wine, and then after a couple of glasses, he was like, what's the trick? What have you got here? Like, what is this thing, right? So there's plenty of stories like that. The fitness ones, it's the ones where I think they see the biggest physical benefit to it as well, where all of the sudden they can go out on a Tuesday night and enjoy themselves and have a drink, but be on their bike by 4 a.m. because why not?
If we go back to kind of the mental aspect of it, and neither of us are clinical professionals, that, but my father drank himself to death, and yet I still drink. I'm getting better. I'm cutting it out more and more, but I still drink. You talked about you have family members who struggle with alcoholism. Why is it so hard for us to actually just give it up?
It's a drug. It's, I often try to avoid talking negatively about alcohol. Like in terms of anything that we do, if you go on our social media, like I said, we're very light-hearted. We're very tongue-in-cheek. You won't hear me sit and talk like, these are the 5 bad things about alcohol, and this is why you should choose to dry. None of that stuff, right? But when asked, alcohol is a drug. Like, it is incredibly bad for you. We are kind of all on board with the smoking, that it's bad for us. And particularly when you travel back to Europe, you see somebody smoke and you go, are you still doing that? Like, somebody is still smoking?
Yeah.
Alcohol? Nah, it's still so accepted, and there's a lot of money from alcohol industry that is being plowed into that message. Look, there's a reason why certain countries don't allow alcohol advertising, because it's so beautiful, it's so lifestyle. It shows a bunch of beautiful people enjoying themselves on the beach, laughing with beautiful white teeth. It makes you want to be that and enjoy that. But it is a drug. It's a depressant. It's a drug. It's a social crutch for people that can destroy families. There is genuinely nothing good about alcohol. Genuinely nothing good about alcohol. Yet everybody uses it, and we feel like it's an acceptable thing to do, I try not to talk about it negatively, because the last thing I want to do is people to feel, well, she's trying to convince me. I want it to be people's choice. And I always say, my mum always said, if you have nothing good to say about something, don't say anything at all. So I don't have anything good to say about alcohol, so I choose not to talk about it. Instead, I have a lot of good to say about choosing other things. So, and we promote that, the choice, the moderation, because people are smart, If something makes you feel good, you will want more of it. So if you have better sleep, if you have more mental clarity, the hope is that you will choose that opposed to something that makes you feel worse.
So we're in January.
There'll
be people who have embraced this, but whose resolve may be beginning to crumble a little bit. Or maybe they're looking at, February and March, we really want to make some changes, because it doesn't have to be January, let's face it. It could be any month. What are your top tips for getting started and for keeping going?
One of the things that I personally found at the beginning, and to this day it works, be prepared. Okay, so it's a bit like if you're on a diet and you go to supermarket and you buy a load of chocolates and crisps and candies, and then you put them in your cupboard, and then come evening time you start getting a bit, I'm going to eat them. It's the same with cutting back on alcohol. So be prepared, stock up on genuinely good non-alcoholic drinks and have it in the fridge, chilled, ready to go. So when you do come home on a Thursday evening and you think, I really want to sit in the garden with my spouse and open a bottle of sparkling wine and catch up and have that moment, off you go. Grab a bottle of non-alc, 2 glasses, and you're good to go. And you will thank yourself the next morning, and it'll kind of keep you going. So I think be prepared is one of my top tips. It's always have something in your fridge that will satisfy that craving. And I don't mean just physical craving, but the social craving as well, to be part of it. Buddy up, find a partner. It's, again, a bit like running or fitness goal. Have somebody you're doing dry January with, or somebody you will say, why don't we cut back on alcohol 3 days a week, and you kind of check it in with them, and it definitely helps us achieve our goals. We are tribal in our nature, so it helps us achieve that. And I always say, don't beat yourself up if dry January is great, and it's our slogan for the month, and there's a big dry January campaign. But somebody used the phrase last year, and I wish it caught on a bit more. Damp January, because I'm also on board with that. I'm totally on board with that. If you get to 15th of Jan and you had an event or you had a really bad day and you had a couple of bottles of beer, that's okay. Damp January. Start again tomorrow. So
there's kind of the problem with New Year's resolutions in some ways, isn't it? That we put so much pressure on ourselves to achieve one particular goal. And then the minute we misstep, the whole thing unravels. And actually it doesn't have to be that way. It's
it doesn't have to be that way.
Permission to slip.
It doesn't have to be that way, because there is a time and a place for everything. So if you want to enjoy a bottle of wine, alcoholic one, with your spouse, do it. But maybe the next day, don't do it. So be mindful is the message. Be mindful. And I think all of us are so much better. The fact that we are having conversations about mental health, the fact that we are talking about anxiety, the fact that children can identify emotions now. They can identify, a 10-year-old can identify anxiety and know that they have ways to cope with that. It comes from adults talking about it, it becoming an acceptable thing. So having these conversations, and if you're doing that January, continue with that. And it doesn't have to be just 1 month. And we always genuinely find that the consumers that we onboard in January, because for us it's the hottest month, like the audience is hot, so it's easy for us to get them. They stay with us throughout the year. Variable degrees, variable kind of consistencies, but they stay with us throughout the year. They come back in full speed the next January, but they stay with us. And I'm really happy about that. I think it's all about mindfulness, talking about what you're going through. and just being open about the challenges that you might have.
Erika, thank you so much for your time on the mental space. Food or indeed drink for thought. Please reach out to Erika. Where can people reach out to you, by the way?
LinkedIn, Instagram, our website, drinkdrystore.com.
Yeah.
We are everywhere.
Brilliant. If you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, please remember that you can subscribe and hear more conversations like this. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. And remember, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and most of the good podcast platforms. Once again, Erika, thank you for joining us on the mental space. Cheers.
Pleasure. Thank you, Scott.